Welcome to A State of Mind. This is Julian Royce. Today I'm speaking with my friend David DeVine. David is someone who is the host of two other podcasts called Mindful You, which is from Naropa University, and the Look Again podcast. And he's talked to some really amazing people on both those podcasts. They are well worth your time. Highly recommend them. He is also a DJ, a music producer, and his original music is under the artist name HigherGlyph. And he's also an audio engineer and videographer, and he just does a lot of stuff in that kind of realm. He's a really cool guy. This was a great conversation, and we actually met at Naropa many years ago, and he gave me advice and helped me out when I was creating this podcast. So I've been wanting to have him on for a long time. I'm going to play a song of his called Bushido. So that was Bushido from HigherGlyph and Totem, two local artists, one of which is David DeVine on this podcast. If you want to jump ahead to my conversation with him, that begins at the 8:36 mark. And I just wanted to share with all of you, in the meantime, some updates in my own life. As some of you have noticed from my last episode, I am now in a new office space. I moved to a new place in Central Boulder. Not sure how long I will stay here, but it is my home now and the home of the podcast for now. And it is raining here in Boulder, and we're finally having a beautiful spring after what was the most dry winter and kind of early spring that I've ever experienced here. Usually we get a ton of rain in March and April, and this year we got basically none, and there was like some small wildfires starting, so the moisture is very welcome. As always, you can learn more about my work as a therapist, meditation teacher, and all my other offerings at stateofmindcounseling.org. And if you are interested in joining a new round of my online psychedelic integration group, please send me a message through my website. This is a group where people get to talk about profound experiences they've had in their life and process them in a group and come to understand them on a deeper level and to integrate them in their being and in their life. And it's not just about psychedelics, it's really about what I would call peak state experiences. That's at least part of it. And the other part is just getting advice and building community together. So just send me a message if you're interested at stateofmindcounseling.org. Without further ado, I bring you David DeVine. And you know, going through a move, because I not only moved offices, I moved homes where I live. It's a big thing. It's a stressful thing. Luckily, I had friends help me out, but it gave me a chance to, let go of some old things. Some things broke. A pretty intense process to go through. The other day I was walking along Boulder Creek with my dog, looking at the water, and I remember this insight I had some years ago that at the time, in this one instance in particular, was quite experiential, and it was just how we, are taking in molecules and then giving them out, and they're moving and shifting through us and becoming the world around us and are us. And the way, one way to think about that is water, like drinking water, the water moving through our body, the water being kind of recycled, the water moving through the Earth's ecosystem over and over again for millions of years. It can be like a window into how we're all connected. And so I was having that thought, that memory of having that thought, and I just felt so blissful and alive and appreciating the spring and the beautiful weather. And then a couple days later, I was in a different place. I was like in a more somber mood, like some difficult things had come up in my own life, and I was reflecting on them, and I was feeling some sense of sadness and loss. And that same metaphor, that same thought of the water and how we're all water came up, but it had this different flavor, and there was a sadness to it, that we all live and we all die. And I think that's equally valid and true. And I just appreciate the being present for the ups and downs of life, and actually being present with, rather than avoiding or running away or denying the truths that can arise in a moment of poignancy, of loss, of sadness at something like death. And that insight around water that was so experiential for me happened actually in the hot springs 8 years ago, I believe. And it was in February, and it's high up in Colorado, outside of Steamboat Springs. I think it's like, around 10,000 feet high. And so everything, and it's like -5 degrees outside. It's like so cold. But the hot springs are hot. And so you get in this water, and it's warm, but your hair turns to like icicles. As soon as you step outside, all the water in your body basically freezes. And so it's just an extremely intense sensory experience. And I was in the hot water for a while, and then sat up on the edge and looked out, and you can see the springs turning into a creek and flowing down. And I was at the top most part of the hot springs, so I drank some of the water coming out of the springs, and then just watching the water go down, and having that insight, looking up, seeing the stars, and seeing the stars reflected in the water that I was floating in. It was this, opened me up to this real experience of the interconnectedness of all things, how we all reflect everything that's happening, and how in so many ways everything that we are made up of comes from things outside of ourselves, and we then give it to things outside of ourselves. And so there's no real sense of ownership there, except I think it's important to own your decisions and the choices you make. And that's partly why every morning for the last few months, part of my morning meditation practice has been to kind of pray, may I make good decisions today? May I make good decisions today? And that intention and kind of praying for making good, whatever good means in the moment, good decisions, has really opened up a lot of energy in my system, because in the moment, just trusting myself and the world around me that I'm doing the best that I can do, and then letting it go. So handling one thing at a time, rather than trying to juggle and reflect on and deliberate over so many things all the time. I found that I just don't have the time and energy to do that. It's just one thing and then the next thing, and just making the best decision that I can make in any given moment. So I just wanted to share that with all of you. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of this podcast. Without further ado, I bring you David DeVine. Take a breath. Let's have a Naropa moment.
Should we bow?
Let's bow.
Let's bow, dude. I haven't bowed in a while.
As long as we don't bump heads.
Maybe that's how we greet.
Well, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is sweet. So you were just telling me that you made some chapstick. Thank you.
You're starting with the chapstick. I made chapstick, yeah. I started making chapstick a while ago. It's so easy. And it's good. Nice. You can make your own flavors. You make it all organic. So I started buying tons of tubes of it. And it's weird because a lot of people take it from me now.
Oh, yeah.
So I just hand them out.
Chapstick, it's like a lighter. It will disappear.
Yeah. No, it's great. So I just give them out now. So
cool.
Let me know how it goes.
All right. So yeah, you are a videographer, podcast producer, music producer, DJ. There's a lot of things you do in that realm.
There's a lot of things, yeah. So in my professional life, I also run a podcast. So I host 2 podcasts. One's called Mindful You Podcast, the same school that we graduated from, the Open University.
Yeah, you've had some great guests on there.
Yeah.
It's really impressive.
Yeah, that's kind of where the whole podcast career got started.
Oh, cool.
But then I also produce another one and host. It's called Look Again Podcast, and I met some dudes on the podcast that I had, Mindful You, they were a guest, and they teach inner city kids meditation and mindfulness in Baltimore.
Awesome.
And so we started our own podcast, and now we've had some pretty awesome guests on that podcast as well. And so I've gotten to speaking with a lot of intelligent, amazing, mindful, contemplative practitioners, like who are really doing it in the field that they love. And
that's so cool.
And then I also I just edit and produce 2-3 other podcasts. So I'm just the editor.
You're busy.
Yeah. And then I have a bunch of clients where I do video work. So that's like my professional life. And then on the side, I go to music festivals and I play as an electronic artist or a DJ. So I have my original music, which is called HigherGlyph. I shared all that stuff to you.
Yeah, I'm going to include some of a track or two from that in the episode. Yeah. And that's HigherGlyph. That's
HigherGlyph.
Yeah.
When I play original music, I'm HigherGlyph. When I play my DJ sets, I'm DJ DeVine.
Sweet.
And
is DeVine your actual last name?
DeVine is my actual last name.
Okay, I always wondered about that because it's a cool name. I didn't know it was like a
dad hooked me up. You know?
Yeah.
It feels good. My mom's last name's Pudwill.
Is that English or British or?
I think it's Irish,
Pudwill.
Irish and German, and so is Divine. Divine is Irish, DeVine. So of the vine.
Sounds French.
How I see it. Yeah, it's a little Frenchy, but I think it's highly Irish, like North Ireland.
Cool. So yeah. Let's see. I'm not even sure where to start, but I don't know. Maybe do you want to mention some of the guests that you've had on that you liked a lot?
Okay. I mean, I've done probably like 150 podcasts.
Oh.
What
are some of the highlights for you personally?
Some of my highlights, there's been so many.
Because you had Dan Siegel, right?
Dan Siegel is the smartest man in the universe.
He is an amazing, it's so cool you got to talk with him.
Contemplative neurobiologist. And that was on my Look Again podcast.
Okay, yeah.
Because the guys from Baltimore, they're like traveling mindful practitioners. So they do a lot of work. And they like go around speaking. They're on speaking tours in the mindfulness community, and so they make a lot of friends with these people. So he was one of them. Dan Siegel, Richie Davidson.
Oh yeah, so well known in the researching mindfulness and the laboratory with brain scans and all that, and friends with the Dalai Lama and all those cool people. Yeah.
He has some really cool stuff to say about the Dalai Lama too. And
so one of my meditation teachers is Mingyur Rinpoche, and I did a month-long retreat with him actually.
Okay.
Way back in, I think it was 2010. And you can see photos of him with all the electrodes on his head. And he went into his lab and got studied. And
I think I've seen that photo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's kind of a famous photo.
Yeah. Okay. Sharon Salzberg.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Okay. One of my favorite guests who was like not so much mindfulness content, but he was on the podcast because he was really cool was Samuel Wright. Oh. And you might know him from the voice of Sebastian the Crab from The Little Mermaid.
Oh my gosh.
Under the sea. You know? He was a guest of ours, and man, that guy like cracked me up. He was really awesome. He did the voice, and he talked about Disney and his relationship with Disney and acting career. It was pretty good.
Cool.
I actually made a little note. Who else did I talk to? Sean Korn, Bessel Vanderkolk.
Oh, you had Bessel Vander. Yeah.
Joanna Macy. I actually flew to Berkeley.
You flew to Berkeley.
I flew to Berkeley to go to her house and podcast with her, and it was just me and her in the kitchen.
Oh wow.
We talked for 2 hours, and then she took me to lunch.
Oh, that's so sweet.
We just had such a sweet moment, and
I've seen
a
her
beautiful conversation. So
she's a really influential, powerful person. Advocating for the environment against nuclear weapons, and I think there's an initiative, I'm forgetting the name of it, that she started that Naropa was partnering with, Naropa University.
Yeah, she has a program at Naropa. I'm forgetting what it's called, but it's like an Earth Guardians, I think.
Guardian, yeah.
It's like an Earth Guardianship, and she focuses on nuclear waste, how we manage it, where do we put it, being mindful of the communities that are exposed to it and the radius that it can affect them physically and emotionally. So like people are just burying not some good stuff in the ground that you shouldn't.
Yeah.
And she's like, wait a minute, this is not allowed.
Yeah, we need more awareness and more policy and more action around that kind of thing.
Yeah. Or just being honest with it. You know, we need to figure out we need to figure out our energy and how we use it and what we want to do with it.
Yeah, it's such a big subject.
It is, yeah. It's a subject that I am not a professional in.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we don't have to go too far down that rabbit hole, but so many of the totalitarian, really negative, really oppressive governments in the world are petrostates. They get all, they support themselves off oil, basically, and that's how they exist. And without all their oil money, they wouldn't be there. And Russia being one of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, Saudi Arabia, it was just the news yesterday, they executed 83 men in one day.
Excuse me, what?
83 executions in a single day.
Why?
At the order of their king or whatever it is.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, according to them, they had committed crimes that were worthy of that punishment, but according to international, human rights organizations, it was not a good thing, obviously.
Oh boy. That's scary.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, energy is something, I think we're in some growing pains of our energy consumption. Being mindful about what type of energy we use and how it affects our earth, how it affects global relations.
Yeah.
Again, like I'm not a professional, but like something's happening here that is very unique to the lifetime in which we live.
Yeah.
And like, we're either going to do the right thing or we're not. And I'd like to hope that we choose to do the right thing.
Yeah.
What that is, I don't know.
Hopefully
but there is, I see the word alternative in the future. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Using thermal dynamics, using solar, using tidal, wind.
Yeah, there's a lot of options on it. There was this article I just saw the other day. There's a company that's raising money to, and I'm not an expert either. I don't know if this is a good idea or a bad idea, but their plan for this company, their mission is to dig a hole deep enough down to touch the deep magma thermal energy and use that as a power source. And according to them, they could be like a amazing power source that could replace fossil fuels. But it involves digging this super, super deep hole, like the deepest hole ever dug.
Yeah. I think
some interesting stuff happening. Yeah.
We've all tried that as a kid.
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't know how far you've gotten, but you can get a couple feet and you're just like, man, I'm almost there. But maybe we should think about that a little bit more before we just start digging god-awfully large or deep holes into something, the abyss of unknowing.
Yeah, consider the impacts.
Conceptually, it sounds like it could work.
So before we move on from Joanna Macy, what was it like to meet her in person? Did you feel a sense of presence? You know that word? Because I saw her speak one time at the Shambhala Center here in Boulder, and it was powerful. Like just her walking into the room, I felt the sense that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
And everyone was quiet, and she was wearing these, it was like green robes, and she was just like, in my mind, she was just like this earth guardian goddess, like personified.
Yeah.
Very much like a Tibetan Lama, but environmental, coming from environmentalism.
Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting.
As you're saying that, I'm trying to find the words to describe her, and what's coming up for me is lovingly concerned. She has a lot of love, and she loves the earth, and she loves the people on it, but she also has a concern that she's bringing and that she talks about, and she wants to raise awareness about us not doing the right thing. So, she has a very big presence. She's so sweet. She's so loving and caring. Like, I'm in her kitchen. I'm just like, oh, wow. I'm at your house in your kitchen. It's just me and you, and we're just drinking tea and talking about all the good things. And it was the only time I flew somewhere to podcast.
Wow. Yeah.
So it was beautiful.
I'm sure it was worth it.
And then she asked me out to lunch afterwards. She's like, I got nothing going on. Want to go to lunch?
That's so sweet.
And we just continued hanging out, and I got to know her as a person beyond of the work she does, and it was a highlight in my podcast career, I would say.
That's really cool.
So yeah. Beautiful person.
Awesome, man. Well, I wanted to ask you about your kind of journey with creativity and how you got to where you are now. And that's a big thing.
Yeah. Well,
did you, when you were a kid, were you always doing music, and was that part of your life growing up?
All right. Well, when I was a kid, I loved Bruce Lee.
Oh, yeah.
And so I did what all kids wanted to do, and I started martial arts. I started martial arts at 7 years old, I'd say. And I got a black belt when I was 14.
Nice.
Taekwondo and Hapkido. I got a black belt, and I studied weapons. And, you know, like, I'm not a dude that can fight. I don't want to fight. I want to, like, pet kitties and, like, dogs. I want to, like, hang out with fluffy animals and be nice. But I think there was a sense of learning. There was, like, a contemplativeness to it. There was a mindfulness of the body, being connected to the body.
Yeah.
Learning how we move in space, how gravity of Earth and heaven, and we're in the middle. So I got to learn all these like really cool ideas from a young age.
That's such a cool way to get into mindfulness, basically, right? Like, it might not even have been called that or popularized as that back then, but now we see that's mindfulness.
Yeah.
Mindfulness of the body, energy, movement.
And so I had this practice, and then I started drumming. So it took me.
Oh, yeah, you're a drummer.
It took me. I've been drumming for 25 years. Oh. It's kind of the hidden talent. It's not something many people see. You know, I don't just walk around with my drum set on me.
Yeah.
But I got my drum set when I was 14, and it took me 3 years just to get one. Because like, what parent wants to buy their kid a drum set? So it took me many years of like showing my parents like, I'm a drummer, I promise. And so I've been drumming for a long time. But right out of right out of 10th grade, I started a band called In Memory. And we were kind of like screamo, emo. We like screamed about our feelings, you know, that vibe.
Yeah.
Like late 90s, early 2000s. That was the vibe.
Screamo is a genre. Screamo. Yeah, I've been to some shows like that.
Yeah.
It's intense.
It's dope. And right out of high school, I went on tour with the band.
Oh, wow.
And we did that for like 2 years. And then I left the band because I was wanting something different. I started working in television. So I worked for MTV as like a production assistant.
I saw that on your website. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah, I was working in television. That's what led me to Naropa.
Interesting.
Because, I was just not enjoying the television world. And I wanted something more deeper in my heart, something more meaningful.
Yeah. Well, without a college degree, you could just go and start working for MTV. Was that hard to get a job like that?
I had a partner at the time who was working with MTV, and she was really deep in the knowing who and who. And honestly, when you get the work done, I mean, you don't need a degree.
Right.
I would say if you're capable, but you know, if you're running, if you're the DP, the director of photography, you might need to know some things about like, you know, like what's your ISO and white balance, like all the camera things to make it like a good shot.
So you self-educated. Taught yourself.
YouTube, baby.
YouTube.
Yeah,
okay.
Dude. YouTube is the way. Also, just investigating your own mind, right? You know, like being willing to learn and figure stuff out. But I came to Naropa when I was 27 years old.
Oh, okay.
So I may look like a little baby, but I'm not young. A little bit later. I'm not young. I'm not old, but I'm not young. And I went to college when I was 27.
Yeah. That's cool. I mean, it's a cool kind of career path, so to speak, or life path. And a lot of people like, I don't know, I'm just imagining like you're like working for MTV, like you could think like, I could never do that, but you did it. I mean, it's not impossible.
I didn't think I was going to do it.
Yeah.
I was invited to work and I just started working.
Was it like music video stuff or?
No, it was reality TV.
Oh, okay.
So more.
That's what MTV turned into.
I worked on
just reality TV.
I worked on a lot of reality TV shows. There was one show I worked on. This was a VH1 show. It was called Fast Track to Fame. Huh. And we went to all the NASCAR events and we just set up a stage and like had a pretty much talent show. And it was rad because I got to travel.
Yeah.
But I was going to NASCAR events and I'm like, dude, this is not the thing, you know?
Wow, interesting.
When I was
different culture.
When I was 21, I really started getting into Buddhism. I love because I started the martial arts. You know, I was always somewhat into Eastern vibes and philosophies. And then when I was 24, I found Xingyi, which is internal martial art. So it's a sibling of Tai Chi and Bagua. Huh. So it's like a Chi, and that changed my life.
Interesting.
That changed my life.
Say the name of that again.
Xingyi.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Tai Chi is the passive way. Xingyi is the aggressive way. So it teaches you how to like just to move things, and it's scary. It's scary when you learn. I think of it as like kind of Mega Man. You need
When you say move things, you mean like using your mind?
no energy.
Energy.
So there's different ways to push energy. There's up and down. There's left and right. There's back and forward. There's drill. There's water. Water's out to in. There's circles. So that's fire.
Oh, cool.
So once you learn how things move, then you can learn how to counteract the movement, the energy. So it's like working smarter, not harder. So if you're pushing down, I'm pushing up, whoever's stronger is going to win, right? But if I just tilt my arm...
you're
like
redirecting.
Yeah, but the thing is being subtle enough to touch and to know like where to go. So that's the practice is also understanding the mechanics of the body. Your body was built in a certain way of how it moves and how it doesn't move and what hurts. And so when you learn that, the mechanics of the body and how to move air through your body and like how you sit in gravity and just being foundational, you feel like a superhuman.
Oh, wow.
You know, I feel really embodied from these practices, and it's more of a healthy thing than a I need to protect myself thing.
Right. You're not like getting in fights with it, but
no.
But you're
like that's the last thing I want. But it's my yoga. People got yoga. Right. People got their stretch practices. I got martial arts.
Yeah.
So that's my practice.
Yeah. Little side note, I just saw this thing that Vladimir Putin, like the International Taekwondo, apparently they'd given him like an honorary black belt back in the day, and they took that back from him, like as in protest to the war in Ukraine and stuff. They're like, they stripped him of his Taekwondo black belt, and they were
good.
Yeah.
No black belt for you, buddy.
So
I mean,
so
he
that
probably didn't deserve that, anyways.
Probably,
who knows? Maybe he's like a crazy black belt artist.
I think it was like an honorary thing to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was your doorway into Buddhism through Taekwondo, through the martial arts?
Not really.
Not really, okay.
It helped. The martial arts was an end to the djing, I would say, which is not it's more of a philosophy. It's a way of thought than it is a religious practice. And I guess Buddhism is a way of thought as well. It's not necessarily...
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like
religion.
A big religion, yeah.
But I
of course it is at the same time.
Are we on a PG podcast? What kind of podcast are we on? Because I'll tell you what really inspired me.
You can curse, yeah. No, you can talk about
Okay, what really inspired me was psychedelics. That's what really got me there because...
Well, you're not alone in that. A lot of people...
I know.
Yeah.
But that's what really got me there.
Interesting.
And questioning my faculties that think, my faculties that feel, like all these things, like I'm not my feelings, I'm not my mind. These are apparatuses that help me live my life.
Yeah.
And what I need to do is learn how to work with them, because we have how it works, but it's like, how do we like become better with feeling stuff that feels uncomfortable or stuff that makes us irritable or stuff that makes us really ecstatic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do we deal with that? So I like to go back and I'm not my feelings.
Yeah, I have to identify.
I am someone who feels. So if I'm in a very uncomfortable situation and I'm having feelings I don't like, I understand they will go away. I understand. I also feel like the quality of person you are is how you deal with the feeling.
Yeah. My dog is snoring very loudly. Let's see if that will help.
She's so cute.
For those who can't see it, I have a very cute dog snoring in the background.
She's chilling.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, I appreciate you bringing psychedelics and being honest. That's part of the intention, to some degree, of this podcast, to talk about things like that. There was a book called Zigzag Zen, and it has these amazing stories of people who got into meditation, Buddhism in particular, in that book, through psychedelic experiences. And it's like this kind of not very talked about in the background kind of shadow thing that now with what's called the psychedelic renaissance, more people are coming forward and sharing their stories and experiences. And so the culture's changing around it. But it's almost like there's just lots of people who got really into something like meditation through that route, but then they didn't want to talk about it because it was kind of taboo. And so that's starting to shift. And I think it's good to be honest and open and just share that, like, because I think for a lot of people it just shows different possibilities, different potentials of your conscious experience in such a visceral way that you then see the value in working more consciously with your own mind.
Yeah. And your feelings.
And your feelings.
And your heart.
Yeah.
You know, like the Buddhists talk about the heart mind. Like, your heart thinks too.
Yeah, that's a good
so
point.
Does your brain. I feel like the heart is the unconditional part and the brain is the ego part. And so what I have this thing, I call it consulting the council, right? So, you know, let's just be real. We all got voices in our head. They like talk to us. Some people are like, who invited you to the table? And other ones are like, okay, you're a wise soul. You're like, sit where I can hear you more. So, you know, if there's something that comes up for me, I like to consult the council. So I'll ask my heart, like, what do you want to do? I'll ask my head, what do you want to do? And I try and decide between there. And also just like kind of waiting a day, sitting with the thing, I feel like is important, because just because you have a feeling doesn't mean you have to make a decision. Like who says that? No one does. It's like, Take a moment.
We can slow down.
Take a moment.
Take your time. Yeah.
Because maybe I think feelings can disable good decisions. And it's never a bad idea to make a good decision. You know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a good point.
Be smart. Be smart. Be honest.
Yeah. And listen to the different voices, so to speak, the different places and where they're coming from. Is it a wise place, or is it impulsive? Is it emotional? Is it reactive?
Yeah.
There's a great book that I just read called Symphony of Selves by James Fadiman. And he's talking about how we're all composed of these different sub-personalities. And he calls them different selves. And the idea to...
so Jungian.
Yeah, it's very Jungian.
It's like shadowy.
It is, yeah. The idea that through integration, through our own development, our own work, they can become like a symphony, an orchestra, which has many different instruments playing together. It's such a beautiful metaphor.
Okay. Yeah, let's keep talking.
Well, you were mentioning like the heart. There's also the gut. Like most of our serotonin is produced in our gut. Yes,
very true.
So we have these different centers in our body that are, I think, different centers of consciousness, like the chakras. And so like what you're saying is like completely right. Like listen to your heart, listen to your head, listen to your gut, listen to... have a way to dialogue with these different parts.
And like, honestly, I love thinking like that and about that, but I also like to go, what is thinking? Where is it coming from? I always like to go a little deeper and just be like, okay, well, you know, I think it's easy to have people say like, sit down and meditate and just be calm. But it's like, well, how? Like, what is calm? You know, because calm is different to different people.
That's a good point.
Also, just like, my gut, your gut, they're so unique. We're so uniquely different, and we can share similar vibes and energy. But at the same time, it's like the way I'm structured is a little different. I got different morals, different principles, different boundaries, different ways of viewing life, experiences.
Different life experiences,
So I like to think that everything is unique. So
I like that.
Yeah.
Maybe it just makes you think about there's so many different theories and models and maps and ways to be or to work with yourself. And yeah, we're all unique. Like find what works for you. Maybe in some way we're all creating our own thing, right? Like we talk about meditation or Buddhism or mindfulness like it's one thing, but it's really on some level different for each person who engages with it.
Yeah.
Right? It's interesting to think about like that.
the pursuit of finding like equilibrium within your heart and mind and your gut, like we all want to feel good, right?
Right.
So how do we do that?
Right.
You know, maybe we find what's causing pain, or maybe we find the things that causes joy. And, you know, what are we promoting? What are we focusing on, right?
Yeah.
Are we focusing on healing, or are we perpetuating the thing in which that don't make us feel nice?
Yeah.
But to be able to step out of that mindset and be like, wow, I'm actually creating patterns that don't really serve me anymore. And I want to change that. Being awake enough to to notice, like, you're screwing it up. Don't screw it up. Be an adult. Like, be an adult.
Yeah.
To take responsibility for yourself, the way you act, the way you treat others. Don't be a jerk, man. Like, come on, yo.
So simple.
Unless you need to be, unless there's like a righteous moment that you got to say what's up. Say what's up, but say what's up from your heart.
Like creating a boundary.
Yeah, because your heart. I feel like your heart. Like if you need to like say what's up to someone, I guess like I'm lingoing it, but that means like have a conversation you don't want to have because it's going to be it's charged, emotionally charged, but saying it with caring for the person's well-being at the end, and that's not easy, and it's it's something to swallow in your throat. Sometimes you're like, I love you, but this really doesn't work with me this way. And I'm noticing, you have to figure out a way to say it where you care.
Yeah, communicate that you care. In fact, I mean, you're probably saying it because you care. If you didn't care, you wouldn't even be trying to have the conversation.
Yeah.
On some level, yeah.
Even if you're not saying it very well, you probably still care. You're just not saying it in the way that you need to, right?
Yeah.
And, what are we trying to promote? Right? So, yeah.
Cool, man. Well, so then at some point you wind up at Naropa. Was it because of your interest in martial arts and stuff?
I don't know.
Not sure.
I don't know. I think my interest in martial arts helped me understand why I want to go there. And like I did community college for like a couple years right out of high school when I was in between touring with the band. And I had no direction. Honestly, can I tell you the truth? This only goes to you, Julian, no one else.
No one else.
I don't want anyone else knowing this. I still don't know what I'm doing in my life. I have no idea. And honestly, it's working out.
Wow.
It's working out.
When you said that, I felt this like relief in my system. Like,
I don't want to know.
That's good to name. Like so many people.
I have no idea.
So many people are struggling because they feel like they should know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's okay to just not know and just.
Why do we have to? Who's the person that's telling us we have to know? Okay, so I've tried to deduce it down to a sentence. I like making sentences.
Yeah.
Senseless sentences that make sense is what I call them. So I was thinking about it. I'm like, well, what is it I really need to be successful or to do what I want and to live the life I want? And it's like, don't have a plan, have principles. If you have principles and you understand who you are and where you want to go and directions you want to go, I thought I was going to work in television for the rest of my life. I thought I was going to be on tour for the rest of my life. I thought, I was going to I also worked at Naropa University for 10 years. Oh, yeah. And I think that's kind of how we met and became friends. And we also kind of like stomped around in the same little groups of friends too. Yeah. So we've been exposed to each other for a long time. But I mean, like, I didn't know I was going to go to college at 27. I have no idea what next year holds for me. Wow. And I'm all about it. I feel like there's more opportunity there than having a set path. And, sometimes you're going to need consistency. I'm a fan. I'm a Virgo. So, like calendars, to-do lists, they get me going. I love it. I love crossing stuff off. I love getting stuff done. But sometimes you just don't know what you're doing in life. And it was hard.
To hear. So don't have a plan, have principles.
Don't have a plan, have principles. Yeah. And have your principles be sound and really good and promote things that you enjoy in your life. Because I feel like a plan, I don't know, you can't Gary V me into like Gary V kind of talks about this. He's just like, just be stoked, man.
Who's Gary V? Losing me.
Oh my God, come on. He's like this huge motivational speaker who started his career in marketing, and he turned to social media showing people that like how easy it is to be dope.
Nice.
You look him up.
I will.
He's great, man. He he's just one of those dudes that's always stoked. He grinds, freelancer vibe.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something to be said about positivity, as like cheesy as it sounds. I mean,
Yeah.
get you up in the morning and get going. And yeah.
Well, that too. And another thing I've been thinking about is because like how exhausting it is to constantly try and be positive.
Right.
Ugh.
Yeah, that doesn't feel,
gross.
No, totally. Yeah.
Like, don't. That's not natural.
Yeah.
That's not natural. Like we have dynamics of emotions. We have dynamic feelings. The thing is I'm coming to is feel them all. Be the best at being angry. Be the best at being sad. Because it's how you act in the feeling that determines of your character.
Yes. Yeah.
So be the best at not being the best, right? Like if you're not feeling good, do that to the best level you can.
Yeah.
And I wonder, because I don't know, don't push the emotion away. That is an authentic expression of the moment, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. You're a psychologist. You talk to me.
No, I like what you're saying. It's I mean, there's so much. I mean, there's this whole thing around reframing. If someone's seen something in a really negative way, you can reframe it and look at it from a different perspective and see the silver lining, or see the like for example, someone broke up with their boyfriend broke up with them. They're super upset. They're super sad. Their boyfriend was a total dick right before he broke up with them. Is that really the person that they want to marry? No, they don't want to marry someone who's going to act like that. So you can reframe it that in the long run, that's a positive thing because you found out, they're not the person you want to be with, and it's better you're not with them. But I hear what you're saying so that's like one, you can always reframe things. You can always find a different frame. And so that's just one example of how you could work with a situation.
I think we lose the reframing perspective because, the biggest frame you look through is you. And sometimes it's your first frame you look through, you don't see all the other frames. Yeah,
we get stuck,
I like in the Naropa world that we come from, the lineage, they talk about a lens.
A lens, yeah.
The lens in which you look through. And I think of it as, I'm a glasses wearing I didn't want to wear them today because I thought we were wearing headphones and the glasses go all weird. But but it's like, I think of it's a prescription, changing your prescription like a glass.
Yes.
So you can see cleaner.
Yeah.
So I like lenses over your heart, lenses over your eyes, and how you see things.
Yeah.
So
well, to get more to what you were speaking to, it's like, I think part of what sometimes perpetuates something like depression or anxiety or whatever mental stuff that's going on that feels like it's repeating and you're stuck there, and it's part of what can be making that continue on is the resistance to it. And so what you were just talking about is like, be the best at being angry, like own that, fully feel that. That can allow it to then move through you and get to the next thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of my guests, Bessel van der Kolk, freaking awesome.
Yeah, he's amazing. I love him.
Awesome. I don't know his exact work, but he deals with like emotional therapy.
His,
the body keeps score. There it is.
So good.
He was a guest of mine.
That's so cool.
He just dropped some awesome knowledge about how trauma is stored in the body because we don't process the trauma. And then I started thinking about, because the guys on my podcast, they teach inner city kids meditation and mindfulness, and they have
from Baltimore, right?
They have this whole program, from Baltimore, and they notice that like you take an angsty young person and you try and make them sit down and think about nothing. You can't. Like, come on, yo.
Right. The whole idea that we should think about...
They want to move. And so Bessel talks about moving it, exploring it, getting your body going, and then sitting down, and just how trauma is stored in the body. And I had a thought of, when we're young, like, holy crap, how much trauma do you actually go through? You have those shower thoughts of like, wow, I felt manipulated in that experience when I was younger, and I kind of don't like that, but that happened, and I wish I was more consciously with it to understand that I was getting played or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe you have a little bit of trauma somewhere, and it's we just need to process it. And sometimes like sitting down trying to think about nothing is the worst thing you can, or I feel like it can be the worst thing you can do. Maybe it is good for you.
Yeah, you're trying to control your experience. You're trying to resist what's happening. Totally.
So I just wonder, as we become adults, since we're not learning how to process trauma, we grow up with a lot of trauma.
Yeah,
so it's important.
It's a big subject.
It's a very big subject.
I think there's something to be said for being able to let things go. I was just having a conversation with a longtime meditator and friend of mine, and he's like, the difference I noticed between people who are ethnically Tibetan and a lot of Americans and people I talk to here is like the Tibetans just can let shit go. And like maybe something shitty happened to them 10 years ago, and they move on, and they're thankful that they're safe now. They're thankful that the sun is out and they have food. And I mean, it's generalizing, right? But there's something to that, and I've been thinking about that because in my own work, delving into psychology and trauma and trying to do my own work, there's kind of this question of, am I making something worse or perpetuating it by trying to give it so much attention? Like at some point, it's good to like go back if there's trauma there, process it, and then it's good to, like somehow let it go, like let it fully process. It'll probably always suck to think about it. It's not like it's not going to be a painful memory or thought, but to like not have it be your mind always going there in your day-to-day life, dwelling on it, bringing up those memories, bringing up those emotions, being a victim, like I feel bad because of that thing again. And you got to get out of that, right? Like a good psychology should help us get out of that.
Yeah. Who knows? Sometimes it's hard. And
it's hard.
With every single person, each situation is unique.
Totally.
And so, but we do have practices and ways to deal with such things. And one thing I've realized, because there's been like things I think about sometimes where I wish I didn't do something when I was younger. I was kind of like mean or something, or like someone was mean to me. And I think about these situations, my subconscious just brings it up, and I'm like, oh man, like why is this here? But then I realize like that isn't who you are. Who you are is who you are now.
Like you wouldn't do that now. Yeah.
I'm not David 14 years ago. I'm David right now.
Yeah.
This is me.
Yeah. That's good.
And that has shaped me. But
also, there's one thing to add in there. If you can have positive regret, like where you did something that you see was wrong, however long ago it was, and you can regret that in a way that's actually a positive thing. It's like, I don't want to do that again. That was bad. It's like, rather than a guilt that is like following you around for the rest of your life. Yeah. If that makes sense. So.
Yeah, and if you have honest people around you willing to give you feedback, you have multiple ways in which you can investigate to how to not suck. You know what I mean? So here's a, since we're talking about feelings, here's a fun thought that I've been thinking about, and I just want to sit with it for a bit, but I'm going to throw it out there, right? Yeah. So feelings are something that are felt now. I kind of feel nervous. This is my first podcast as a guest, not a host, but I'm excited. So I'm like, I have feelings now, and then when I go home, I can think about that feeling. So I can think about the feeling that I had in the past, and I can experience the feeling now. But one thing I'm thinking about is feelings don't feel very future. Feelings tend to live in the moment or the past.
Or memory.
You can have it, or you can think about what you had, but it's hard to understand how you're going to feel, and you can speculate, I bet. Like, I'm going on vacation. I'm going to feel stoked. But, I mean, do you really know that?
Anticipation,
So feelings are very momentary.
Yeah,
like, definitely. How are you going to feel from a week from now?
I have no idea.
Exactly. Either do I.
Right.
You can only tell in the moment.
Right.
Feelings are, they sit differently in the fabric of time, is what I'm noticing.
I haven't thought about it quite like that.
Either have I until like a week ago.
Interesting. Even if something that you imagine is going to be a really good thing and then it happens, you don't know actually how you'll feel in that moment, if you're honest with yourself.
Yeah. So feelings feel momentary to me.
Yeah, definitely. Well, they're definitely momentary.
Yeah.
I think of them kind of like the weather, Yeah. Like, what's the weather like? What are the feelings like? What is the mood like,
Yeah. I mean, there's probably more feelings than there are weather patterns.
Probably, yeah, you're probably right.
Who knows? There's so many complex feelings, but they really shape how we move through life. So if we're like humans are meaning making machines.
Yeah.
We love to find meaning. Like we're
That's
trying
true.
to find meaning in religion and like, spiritual stuff. And it's like, who knows, man? But as we're trying to find feelings, we're just, I feel like I'm losing my train of thought, but like feelings are in our life a lot. And so if we learn how to make the thing in which feels, the like there's something in us that feels, and then we kind of are overwhelmed with the feeling. But I want to focus on the thing that feels, like the thing that is feeling. I want to make that badass.
Yeah.
I want to make that thing like very efficient into extracting the nectar in which that'll make me cooler or more emotionally sound with what's going on.
I love what you're, it's like you're wanting to have a really mature relationship with your feelings more, get the nectar. I like that. I mean, the one thing I just thought about is we are meaning-making machines, like absolutely. I mean, I don't know about the word machine, but we're meaning-making beings. And, and then if things feel or seem, or you're thinking that they're meaningless, that's also a kind of meaning that you're giving it. Like you're giving it, the meaning that you're giving it is that it's meaningless. And that can feel sad, that can feel depressed, that can feel meaningless. Or it could feel free. I don't know. But anyway, you can't escape. It's like an existential condition that we're in. And to find the power in us that is doing that on an individual level, I think is like the lever that we can start to work. Like on a deeper level, like you can decide on some deeper level the meaning that you give things. So like I could have a day or a week or a month, I don't know, where I feel really depressed. But what meaning do I give it? Do I give it the meaning that I'm a failure, my life is going to be like this forever? Or can I find a place in me where I give it the meaning that this is my experience now and I'm moving through it and I'm going to be stronger on the other side? And that's the meaning that I'm giving it. Even in the middle of that, feeling down, feeling bad, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So
there you go, reframing.
Reframing, yeah.
It's just reframing. And I want to get better at feeling.
Interesting.
I don't want to just like I don't want to just feel good. I want to feel the best fucking good I've ever felt. And that's going to constantly evolve, and that's going to constantly shift. And I want to be.
Are you talking about like feeling deeper, like feeling more intensely?
More pure. I mean, it doesn't have to be. I mean, how do you go deeper in feelings? Get your heart broken, or I don't know. Like I don't know if it's a deep thing. It's more of a feeling it on a more. I don't want to say deeper, but I guess it could be deeper.
Deeper, more clear, more clean, more powerful.
Like have a professional approach to how I process it.
Interesting, yeah. Make it more conscious at the least. Yeah.
And also understand that when you're having a feeling, you get a little disabled sometimes. Like your thought processes kind of break down a little bit. You're not rational sometimes. And to understand that. And that's why how I said earlier was to take a little bit of time, because why do you want to make a decision when you're irrational?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, when you're really possessed by a feeling, I think the word possession is a good one. You're taking over. Probably not a good time to decide to get divorced or buy a new car or whatever. Like you want to be grounded. You want to be in a good place. Yeah.
Like as I get older, being responsible is becoming more sexier.
Nice.
telling the truth, being responsible, honest, being loyal, all those like foundational yummy feelings, they're so sexy. I love it.
Maybe those are some of your principles you were talking about right there.
I don't know. It's something, but who knows? Like I'm not the best at them. I don't want to act like, I'm just so like, everything's perfect. It's like shit goes down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got to handle life, but trying to do it better in every sense, I think is a step in the right direction.
Well, okay, I got another question for you. Your journey with podcasting, which you've done a lot of with some amazing people.
Yeah.
How has that influenced your own process, your own path? Has that been, because for me, it's been such an amazing way to learn and to grow just from doing it. Like it's valuable just in and of itself,
Yeah, I mean, you are correct. So you're talking to like contemplative neurobiologists about action potentials and thoughts in the brain, and it really makes you think about where thoughts come from and how your thoughts are processed and how they're delivered. Everything is basically neutral until you internalize it and then act upon it. Because I can say things to you, they're obviously coming from a feeling that I'm having or like a moment that I'm having. But as I say it, now it's in the space, right? It's in the ether, right?
Yeah.
And then you hear it. You can be like, oh man, David's kind of being mean to me. Maybe he's having a rough day today. Or you're like, fuck that guy. Oh, what? No, you didn't. Right?
Yeah.
So it's essentially neutral until you digest it. So I want to work on the thing in which that takes it in.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I can totally agree with that. So I edit the podcast too. I edit all my podcasts. So I listen to each one like 3 times over.
Wow.
Before they're like, I micromanage the crap out of it, right?
That's awesome. Yeah.
And it's a great way to learn. It's a great insight to the work that these people do, which is super brilliant and very therapeutical and helpful to people and their process and growth. So I learn a lot. Like there's moments where I'm sitting there editing and I'm like, man, it takes me like 3 hours to edit an hour long podcast sometimes. Yeah. And I'm smiling because I'm like, this content is sick. It's so good.
That's a good sign.
So good. And I'm just sitting there being like, I fucking love doing this.
I love that.
Fucking love it. It's so good. Like I love chatting with people and people are smart, man. It turns me on. I'm just like, yeah, buddy. Like talk to me. So
you're creating a context to bring out the best in people, ideally.
Yeah.
A recorded conversation and
Also, people want to, like people do great work and they want to be highlighted.
Yeah.
And I think if you can hold as, honestly, I never thought I'd start a podcast. I didn't want to start a podcast. I don't like my voice. You know what I mean? I'm sure you've come across those things too.
Listening to your own voice is a challenge. Yeah.
You have to get over it. But what I was working in the marketing team for Naropa, and the idea of starting a podcast came up. My first thought was, I don't want to edit because I'm an audio engineer. I do a lot of audio editing and work, and I'm like the editor at Naropa for their videos. And my first thought was like, I don't want to edit someone else's podcast. So I guess I'll start it. And, I was like, I have good ideas. I think I have cool ideas and I can hold a conversation. And so that's how I learned. I just started doing it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm doing a great job with it.
But I did it because I didn't want to edit someone else's work.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right.
I think.
How did you start yours? What inspired you to start yours?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I did an internship at an addiction treatment center in Estes Park. Okay. It's about an hour drive from where I lived in Boulder. And so 3 to 4 days a week for almost a year, I'm driving up there, driving back. Drive up in the morning, drive back in the late afternoon. Started listening to podcasts. That commute, that drive was like really what started. And I was studying psychology in Naropa, in the master's program. And I found Sam Harris, who's a huge influence. And I literally listened to all of his podcasts up to that point, like just all of them. And I just loved what he was doing. And and I learned so much. And I just started thinking about the value of conversation itself, where we're two people talking, even two people that disagree maybe around things. Like some of his podcasts will be contentious or be, have a lot of debate. And to hear him forming logical thoughts in real time and sometimes even changing his mind around something and like see that process and the honesty there. And and Joe Rogan and other podcasts, I just started finding them, and there's something like really human about it. And what you're talking to, like having an expert or a really smart person talking in a conversational format, I think there's something magical about it. You're getting their world, you're getting a lot of information, you're getting perspectives and knowledge, but it's coming out more organically. And it's like maybe less systematic than a book, but it's like you're getting a sense of the place that it's coming from, if that makes sense. Like the deeper, because they're speaking.
It's relatable.
Yeah, it's more relatable. Yeah.
You feel like you're there. You're just listening to it. And if it sparks your interest, of course you just want to hang in there and see what happens.
Yeah.
Especially if someone like Sam Harris is a super intelligent guy, right?
Yeah.
And willing to self-examine in the moment.
Yeah,
Like,
I love that.
What a beautiful way to be.
Yeah.
Give me some of that. How do we do that?
Side note, every girlfriend I've had that I've played a Sam Harris thing for, they're always like, I hate his voice. Like, he sounds like a robot. Like, so, I don't know.
My go-to is Terrence McKenna.
Oh, man.
And
he's got a funny voice.
He's got a... I might have listened to everything that guy has, but just being swimming in the abyss of what could be's. There's something beautiful about that. I love it, you know?
Well,
he also makes me feel calm and at ease, because I think when I was younger and angsty, I had the world is out to get you kind of vibe. And, you know, you think about the cosmic abyss of where we're at, and it's like, are we just making meaning around something? We're, like, in the Buddhist sense, we all go to the bardo, you know? And it's how you act right now and forevermore. You know, your heart is going to be weighed to the feather of truth when you go through the tunnel to the bardo and you see your spirit guides, and they're going to be like, all right, Julian, you did good. High five. You know, like, where do you want to go next? What carnation do you want now? So that's what I believe. I don't want to take away anyone else's belief. So, like, where they go, like, maybe you just don't exist ever again. But I do agree that in a Buddhist sense that we go to the afterlife. I think that's more real. The afterlife is more real than this life. Think about it. It's like, where everything goes. Like your dog is not going to be here forever. Your dog is going to go somewhere, right? All animals, plants, everything dies, right?
It's true.
Even aliens, like, whether you believe in them or not, they die. Where do they go?
If they're alive, they must
Where
die.
do aliens go? We all go
to
the same place, which is the bardo, according to the Buddhists. And I'm very fascinated with accelerating my process of being a brighter soul.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't know if we all if I agree that we all go to the same place. We all go through a process, a death process, and maybe a rebirth. I don't know, but
what are the places you think you might go?
Yeah.
Like, you think there's a heaven and a hell? Like, they separate the souls? They filter them out?
One thing to share here is that in science, like, there's never an example of something that then becomes nothing. Energy always transfers to some new form.
Yeah.
And so that's a way that I've understood consciousness, which is continuing moment by moment. When the physical body dies, it makes sense to me that it would carry on, because where would it go? What would it mean that if it just, you know what I mean? Like, it's something that's happening.
So the soul goes somewhere is what you're saying?
I think so. But I guess, you know, at the end of the day, I don't really know. But I imagine that it carries on in some form. I don't know. It's a rabbit hole. I'm not.
Yeah.
I used to really believe in reincarnation and the Tibetan Buddhist teachings around it, and now I just, you know, I don't really know, but I know that when we go to sleep at night, the world disappears, everything disappears for us, and then we re-emerge in the morning, and that's a kind of microcosm of the death process. We have dreams.
What gets released in your brain, Julian? Dimethyltryptamine,
okay,
maybe?
You want to go there? Yeah.
I mean, well, you know, who knows where we go? And here again is us trying to make meaning out of something that is not fathomable.
Yeah.
Like, we can't even think about the universe. Like, look at our what?
Yeah.
What? We're on a rock spinning. Everything is like motion and thrust and spin and electrons and photons and everything's vibrating. Did you know that everything... Okay, so here's something interesting is when I'm talking, you hear the same pressure wave as I do. We hear the same thing, right? We may be in different positions, so it sounds a little different according to where we are located, but we generically hear this from the source it's coming from, right?
You're talking about like the sound wave?
Yeah.
Okay.
But light, photons, they are very unique to you and they're very unique to me. We do not share the same photons. So when it comes to audio, we kind of share the same pressure wave in the air. But when it comes to photons, we
never
don't.
thought about it like that.
Yeah.
So we're seeing different photons, or we're experiencing different photons, or
Yeah, every photon that reaches your eye is not something that I can share with you.
wow.
So the uniqueness in that moment.
Yeah.
What?
Well, I was gonna say, yeah, that's really cool to think about.
What? It's crazy.
I think if you examine your subjective experience really closely on a fine level, it's totally unique. It's totally yours. You know, like what can we really, even if you're deeply in love with your partner and you, that's true too. And you're having your own unique experience. They're having their own unique experience. There's some existential, you know, thing there where it's you, it's your experience. Like you can't be in someone else's shoes. You can't be in their body at the same time. But I wonder if so. According to
you cannot.
According to the Tibetan Buddhist teachings I've studied, there's a text by Mipa Rinpoche. He was a master in the 1800s. He talks about the phenomena of clairvoyance. Like supposedly a meditation master could experience, like a Buddha could know the experience of other people, other beings, other animals. And he talks about it like a mirror. They become a very clear mirror, and then they reflect in that mirror, and so they can see your thoughts. So in theory, and that's an interesting thing to think about. That by becoming so clear and so aware, they're able to kind of resonate or reflect or know on a deeper level than we're able to the actual experience of someone else. But they're still not able to be in that experience. They're just able to know it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like they're clear enough to resonate, to understand how someone's feeling.
Right.
But I mean, again, you're never going to be in someone's shoes.
But you're not, yeah.
It's just like the uniqueness of it. Because the thing is how we act also depends on who we are and our upbringing and our principles and, you know, what's right, what's wrong. We all think about it differently.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you could examine a life in the holistic view in which the only person who can feel it uniquely has experienced it. I don't know. There seems a little assumption there.
Say it again.
Like the like, oh, I'm so clairvoyant, I understand what people feel, and I was like, I'm gonna call assumption there. Like it feels a little bit of assumption.
Well, I'm not gonna claim that at all, but yeah,
I would never claim that. But I can also understand that like you're having a good time. I'm enjoying myself. Like, I can understand that you are having a certain feeling that I've felt before.
Right.
But I don't know how, and I don't know how you feel it, but I know what you're feeling.
On some level.
Right?
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
Like we feel each other.
Does that
we
make
know
sense?
each other. Yeah.
I was trying to, there was something else about feelings I was saying.
I think your point around DMT is relevant to the death experience. Like that might be the closest to what the death experience is like that humans can experience. Like people describe blasting off, going into the universe, going into the void.
Breaking through the chrysanthemum.
Breaking through the veil, yeah. And a sense of whatever you identified with as yourself in the world is no longer there, and yet you're still aware in some level.
But like, why is it not there? Maybe it is. It's just, I think that's where like the dimensional talk comes in of, I think there's like a different world that might exist around us. I don't know if I believe this fully, but I like to think of it sometimes because it's just, I like fun thoughts.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Like
we talk about spirit worlds.
Okay, yeah.
That kind of like are integrated into the human experience in some sense. You know, they're borderlining a dimensional shift, you know, that we can sort of experience it, but not. I don't know. They're here, but they're not here.
Like an in-between kind of world. Yeah.
So I feel as though when you leave your body, you're kind of crossing over to a different dimension. What does that mean? I don't know. I use the word dimension. Maybe I use it wrong.
Different kind of experience?
Yeah. The consciousness goes somewhere else. So I mean, what's that thing they do where it's 26 grams or something?
That when you die, you lose 26 grams? I've heard.
So
I wonder if I need to look into that more, but
they say that's the weight of the soul. Is like, I don't know the exact number, but I think it might be 26 grams. And so when somebody dies, they instantly weigh a little less.
I wonder if that's literally true. I want to look that up more.
I think there's some studies about it, and
I've heard that.
The soul has a weight.
Well, there's a lot.
That's kind of wild.
Yeah, that is wild to think.
You can weigh the soul.
Huh. There's definitely been studies showing like young children remembering their past lives around the world in different cultures that aren't connected, different languages. So
yeah,
that's interesting research to look into.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta say it. So when I was 6 years old, I had an existential crisis.
Oh, you're young.
I was crying for like a day and a half straight because I
man.
just discovered I was gonna die.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, I'm gonna die. Ah! You know, it's a little baby just crying. And my dad was like super annoyed. And then I started having thoughts of like me living a different life, right?
Oh.
And I was a black panther on the plains of Africa, and I had 2 baby cubs.
Oh.
And I just remember like chilling on a branch, and my paw was just swaying, you know, like how you hit a cat's paw, and it's just so fluffy. Well, I thought I was a black panther, and I told my dad, and he's just like, "You're crazy." He's like, "That's reincarnation." And I remember him saying that word to me at a young age, and it stuck with me.
Yeah.
I instantly reframed, because when you grow up, I don't know if parents talk about death to their kids. It's a little taboo, right? But
I think it's important. I think we should.
You know it's gonna happen, but you just think you die and you like go somewhere, and so I had this idea when I was little that like, oh, you're different things, and I'm not claiming to be the king of whatever this or the Queen Elizabeth or whatever, like.
Yeah.
Like,
a lot of times when people,
on.
yeah, that's the kind of stereotype. Like you go to some psychic and in your past life, everyone is King Tut and Queen Elizabeth and whatever.
You were
Cleopatra.
Osiris.
Everyone's Cleopatra.
Yeah, you were Osiris. It's like, well, I thought my homie was. That's what he told me yesterday. I don't know.
Maybe a way to understand that is there are certain patterns of existence, like archetypes, and Cleopatra, is a certain pattern, a certain archetype, a certain, a queen, a powerful female ruler that you relate to on some level, and there's something there in the field that you connect with.
I can dig that. Yeah, I have like archetypal feelings of who you are. And like what's weird again, and like talking about time, right? So if I was a Black Panther on the plains of Africa many moons ago, and then I, pass away in that physical sense, and then I come back as like little David DeVine, living in California, right? Maybe like it's very like you did that, then this. So it's a very chronologically ordered mindset. And a thought I was having recently was like, maybe I'm still that right now. And maybe I'm doing this.
On some level, it's still happening.
Yeah. So consciousness is like God, whatever, however you see God. I'm using God in like an ultimate sense, but experiencing itself. So maybe like I'm actually you too, but you're more you than me, and I'm more me than you. And therefore I could maybe understand how you feel.
Right.
But I don't know. Who knows? It's a fun thought.
We have enough in common to, there's some sense we can understand each other. Yeah. I mean, that's an ancient Indian idea that we're all God, that God's taking different forms, however you want to define God. Not God as in like a particular being, but God as in like the life energy in all of us, or the ground of being. Yeah.
How do you define God? How do you express God in your life? What do you think?
Oh, man. I've never been asked that before on the podcast.
Oops.
I guess if I'm going to be honest, like the idea of different gods and goddesses and energies like that, like I'm open to that idea. Archetypes like you were talking about, like different ways I could understand it. But in terms of like God as in like ultimate reality, is something different, I think. I think it's more like the fundamental space in which everything is happening, that everything is. I like the metaphor of the ocean and the waves. And so God would be the ocean and we're the waves.
Okay, I can dig that.
Yeah.
Nice.
And like everything we experience is a wave in that metaphor, It's not
okay.
not
You can
just...
talk about waves now. Okay. So, as you're saying waves, that's kind of in my current expression of how I define God or express God is the primordial wave, the wave that started everything.
Okay.
But then I've said that to people, and then this one guy he's like, I don't know if I agree with that. He's like, what about the space in which the wave exists? And I was like, oh, you're totally right. So I include that. I include how you just said, the ether. So the space in which it exists, and then also the wave itself.
Like both.
Because everything feels like a wave to me. I'm an audio guy. Everything we're saying is a wave, right?
Yeah.
Photons are a wave.
Yeah.
Electricity is like some sort of a wave. You know?
It's beautiful to think about.
Everything has a pattern.
Yeah. Yeah, and so part of that is then you can't pin anything down as one unchanging thing that you could hold onto and look at and examine. It's like everything's moving, shifting, changing, and
everything's
vibrating.
Everything is vibrating. like you get little atoms and they have the little whimsical circles that they're just like electrifying in, right?
Yeah.
And then you put a bunch of them together and it seems like it creates something solid, but it's not. There's more space than there is stuff.
Right. Yeah.
It don't look that way though. Why does it not look that way?
Yeah.
But there is more space than there is stuff.
Yeah. That's good point.
So it's the density of things, I guess.
You
know?
Yeah.
Who knows?
It's good to like think about that, and that opens up so many possibilities. Like we were talking about reframing. If everything's a wave, if everything's vibrating, there's so much possibility in the future. And we tend to want to, things that have been this way in the past are always going to be that way in the future. You don't know that. We don't know that. You know? We don't know how things will unfold for you.
And, I do the, who says it's supposed to be? Like, why do we constrain ourselves to thoughts that we think are real? You know, like we tend to assume a lot. My new thing is calling people's assumptions out, because I hear people like, oh, this whole blah, blah, blah is like this. And it's like, I mean, that feels like a huge generalization right now.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's true, but most likely it's not. Like when you start categorizing groups of people, like, come on, yo.
Right.
Uniqueness. We're all unique.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to politics, it's like Democratic or Republican. It's like each situation needs to be dealt with in a different manner, whether it's finance, health, politics, road building, construction, global relations. Everything is different. Treat it differently. Act accordingly.
I think there's a both and there. Like everything is unique, and having certain patterns and categories are just useful, but they're not ultimately true, but they're useful.
Yes.
That's kind of
there are models in which we need to work
certain
within,
models, and
but to have a fresh approach to how we see it or deal with it.
Absolutely. I think it's a really important point.
Yeah. But man,
be fresh.
Yeah. Like the thoughts you have, they're not ultimatums. Yo, you own them. You are the owner. You are the owner of how you feel. You are the owner of how you think and what comes in your brain. Sometimes there's some shit in there that you're like, what the fuck?
I like that message.
But that's not who you are. You get some weird thoughts sometimes, but you own it. Let's be adults. Let's own how we feel, how we act, what we say.
Yeah.
Like, why not?
Like, own it instead of being oppressed by it or beaten down by it. So many of us have so much negative thinking all the time.
Yeah.
It's just like a pandemic of negative thinking. So, yeah, I'm with you.
I had an old lover call me out, a couple of years ago of having certain mind frames. And it just was really impactful. And I started my journey of being like, I don't need to think things are permanent. So,
yeah.
Sometimes you need to get like my biggest learning opportunities are when I feel crushed by people noticing something but lovingly telling me.
Oh, yeah.
I've been crushed so many times in my life, but it's how I dealt with it that allowed me to promote the good stuff.
Yeah.
To move through it. And then what's crazy is then you grow up and you move through it, and then you get to see how other people act in response. And then you can kind of see like, oh, I used to have those habit patterns, and you're like, it's not very attractive.
Yeah.
Like I want people to like enjoy my presence.
Yeah.
But I also want to be I like to be a hidden person,
I noticed that about you.
Put me in the corner.
You're a hidden gem.
Put me on stage or put me in the corner of the room. Like those are my two spots. Yeah.
Not in between.
On the sound booth, I'll be in there tweaking the sound. I don't want to be seen unless I'm on stage.
Hmm.
You're on the dance floor, right?
I like dancing, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I feel you. Sometimes it's nice to sit back and observe. I like doing that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's been great having you on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Our conversation has been a journey. I didn't expect it to go down all these rabbit holes.
You know what? I had no idea where to go either. This is just two Naropa grads just chatting it up right here.
I feel like as soon as I asked you what you learned from podcasting, all this interesting stuff came out.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, podcasting kind of taught me how to write down my ideas too. So I have like a little notepad in my phone. So anytime I have an idea, I write it down. You can sit with it for a while, and then sometimes I write podcasts out of that.
Beautiful.
You know, so some of those ideas that I shared with you, they could be podcasts or already podcasts that I have. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I'll link your stuff in the show notes below, and everyone can check it out. And
Great. Like, thank you for having me on. Like, this is the first time I've ever been a guest and not a host, so
that
it
blows
feels
my mind.
really special.
Yeah.
You know, and like I appreciate you for having me and
Thank
just chatting it up.
Hell yeah. Thanks for being on.
Yeah.